between perception and experts, and experts and perception, experts and perception, perception and experts. Everywhere you look, there are these feedback loops between the target population and the perception of reality that the manipulators want the target population to have. And, people will be well aware over the years what happens if you step out of the box. If you start asking the big questions, you start talking about them. So people can even think you're crazy, but they certainly dismiss you as a kook, crazy, pseudoscientist, and all the rest of it. And so there is many years ago, back in the 1990s, I used to make the point that humans have out sheep the sheep, because at least the sheep need a sheepdog to keep them in line. Humans keep themselves in line. And they keep themselves in line by accepting what they're told about reality, what they're told about their self-identity, what they're told about events. And anyone among them that steps out of that, I know this from long experience, and starts questioning these norms, it's not necessarily the manipulators that target you, though they do that sometimes. It's the population that target you.
David Icke, welcome on Just Tap In, brother. What are you most excited about and hopeful about for what is currently unfolding with humanity and where we're headed in the future?
My ambition in this interview is not to melt, to be honest, because it's a very, very hot day in England. So if you see me going dark here and dripping, that's the reason. It's not stress. So what do I want for humanity? Well, people talk about solutions. What's the solution? And I don't talk about solutions because solutions tend to lead to more problems in search of more solutions. For me, the way to change something is to look for the cause of why what you want to change is happening, is possible. And all the way through this, I'm in my 36th year of researching this and writing about this now. There has been a very common theme, and it happens and spans the dimensions. And that is that there is an effort, a long time effort, to isolate what you might call incarnate consciousness from its infinite, expansive self, the real I, which is just consciousness. It's not a form. Form is the way that consciousness experiences different dimensions of realities, yes. If I was in my pure consciousness form here, I couldn't tap the keys. I couldn't pick up this glass because my consciousness is on a completely different frequency to this world of materialism. So we take on a vehicle that has the same, as within the same frequency band as that we wish to interact with. So there are endless forms that we take to interact with different realities, different bands of frequency, if you like. But in the end, we're none of those things. They are vehicles to experience. What we are is consciousness, spirit, These words are necessary for communication in our reality, but really they're almost beyond words. It's a state of being aware. And the question is, how aware? You can be, in the end, if you become expansive enough, you can become infinitely aware. But most people obviously are not in that state, not least because there are systematic efforts to to disconnect us from that level of awareness, or even expanded levels of awareness, never mind, the whole way. And that's because there is a force that seeks to manipulate humanity that could not possibly do that if we were in an expanded state of awareness, because we'd see it and we'd also tap into that power to override it and overwhelm it. So I've said all the way through for decades now that the foundation of human control is control of perception. That's the absolute foundation, bottom line of how humans are controlled. Because what we perceive leads to how we behave. If you look at, many recent examples, if you can get people to perceive a situation in a certain way, they will behave in ways that reflect that belief system. For instance, if you can get them into a state of fear that some bogeyman's coming, or some bogey disease, then they will respond from a point of view of that fear, and they will do what you tell them because you think, or they think, that you're the ones that can protect them from what you've manipulated them to fear. So everything is perception. The number of people in full knowledge who are pushing the world in a direction towards global dystopia is absolutely tiny compared with the global population. And therefore, you may be able to physically hurt people in a relatively small area with the military or law enforcement or whatever, but you're not going to control 8 billion people from a relative handful unless you do two things. You control their perceptions so they behave the way you want them to, and you take from the target population and you put them in uniform, and you get the target population to control itself. And all of these things are only possible because of the myopia of perception, not least self-identity, that we've been manipulated into. And so what's the cause of the problem? That we have been manipulated to perceive reality and to perceive ourselves in a incredibly myopic way, and a distorted way in which we see ourselves as human when we are actually consciousness having a very brief experience as human. So if you look at the way perceptions are manipulated, it takes a very predictable course. First of all, you want incarnate consciousness to believe it is the human. that it is the body, that that's who it is. Not that that's what it's experiencing through, but that's what it is. So you want self-identity to focus upon the idea that we are a man, a woman, we are this religion, that race, this race, this income bracket, whatever. In other words, you want people to self-identify with the labels of what we call human. Now, once you do that, and most people are there because it's incessant, but once you do that, you are in the realm of limitation. You are in the realm of I can't, in the realm of little me, I have no power. And that which has the perception of having no power looks out of itself to that which it perceives to have power, to make a difference, to know more than you know. And what are those people? They are so-called experts. They are academics. They are scientists. They're doctors. They're politicians, etc. So the idea is that you first of all convince people that all they are is a human and that they have no power, and then they look out of themselves, outside of themselves, for that which they think has power, and suddenly you have the very dynamic, the top-down hierarchical structure of control that has run this world throughout known human history. You know, if you look at what we know of human history, or what we think we know anyway, there's a simple question that comes from it. Why is it that throughout this entire period that a few people have always controlled the many in a hierarchical structure of power? Why is that? And the answer is because the mass of the population has been convinced of its powerlessness, convinced of its subordination to that which it thinks has power, and the ability of the few to continue to manipulate people to have that perception of reality. Simple thing. If 8 billion people, not even 8 billion, even a fraction of them, said, no, we're not doing what the few tell us. We're not doing what the top of the pyramid tells us. We're not doing it. What power does the top of the pyramid have in that sense? None. It has none. And therefore, the answer is staring us in the face. We cease to cooperate with our own enslavement. But people don't do that because they know their place, or think they do, that they're in this hierarchy and they're up there and they call the shots and we're down here and we basically do as we're told. And that perceptual dynamic has gone on throughout human history, which is why the few have always controlled the many and continue to do so. And so removing the cause is to engage in a total reevaluation of self-identity, in the sense that you stop identifying as a human, just a brief experience, and you start identifying as an expression of infinite awareness, having that brief experience. And I can tell you from my own kind of story over the last 36 years, that when you do that, everything changes. Because another massive part of this, a crucial part of this control, is to keep from us the true nature of the I but also the true nature of the reality that we're experiencing. They want us to believe that this is a physical, solid, material world. You only got to look at quantum physics to see that that's not true. You go deep enough into the atom, into any of these so-called building blocks of material reality, and you find that they're not material at all. So we are, first of all, in a situation where the few, the inner core, know what this reality is and how it works, and they just want to keep it from us so that we go on through our lives believing that the world is as we appear to experience it, when it's not. And if you have the knowledge that of how the world is and what the world is, and your target population doesn't know that, you are already in a phenomenal position of power over the mass of the population. And so we have two worlds. We have one world, which is what I call the global cult, which is a network of secret societies, fiercely compartmentalized. Even most people within the secret societies don't know what the real game is. And that global cult, which is like a you can imagine like a spider's web around the planet of secret societies and seven secret groups with an interlocking leadership ultimately. Through that network, at the inner core level at least, this knowledge of what reality is passed on from generation to generation. So they know what they're dealing with and how it works. At the same time, and this can be clearly shown from research, this cult or elements of it have created the sources of communication and information that the mass of the people have. Education, the media, on and on. And the idea is that while the greater knowledge is passed on through the secret society network, the population in general is kept in ignorance of that knowledge. And what's emerging more and more, I've been writing about this for decades now, is that we create our own reality. We create that reality from our perception of reality, conscious perception, and 95% of human behavior comes from subconscious perception. And so the way it would seem to work, and this would start to explain some of the strange happenings within quantum physics, is that our perceptions are generating a frequency. They're generating an energetic field that relates to the nature of the perceptions. So if we are in a state of depression or resentment or hatred or fear, anxiety, we're generating a low, slow frequency. And if we're in a state of love and a state of joy and appreciation, we are in a high, fast frequency. And the difference between the two dictates the nature of our reality, because that field of perception, that field of emotion and thought that we call perception, is interacting with the quantum realm, and it is manifesting in the physical world a reflection of that state of being, that state of perception. Give you an example. if you are in a perceptual state, in a self-identity state that says, I have no power, I um, I have no control over my life, that's what you believe, then that goes out as a frequency, interacts with the quantum realm, and manifests in a so-called materialism, a reflection of that perception. And so people then experience the fact that they have no power. My experience, look, I have no power. Everything I try, nothing works, and all that. But they don't realize they're in a feedback loop, that their perceptions are in a feedback loop with the quantum realm that is manifesting their reality. Now, this is a key, and it's fundamentally what this global cult wants to keep from us, because they're using it. They know that if they can infuse our perceptions of reality and our perceptions of self, not least I have no power, they know that through that feedback loop, once they've got our perception, they've got our experienced reality. So if you look at, for instance, religion, well, look at anything in this reality, and it's all about subordination. And once you are in a mode of subordination in any way, shape, or form, you are interacting with the quantum realm and manifesting a state of subordination. You're creating your own reality. And these manipulators, the inner core, know that. And so if they want to create a mass reality, they know they only have to control the mass perception, and that perception will manifest that reality. This is what we call preemptive programming is about. People have realized in recent years that they're putting out in movies and in television programs, etc., a future, like a prediction of the future. It might be sci-fi, it might be AI control, it might be all these things. And they are putting in overwhelmingly into the subconscious that sense of reality, that sense of this is what's coming, this is what the future is, and then we manifest it. We make it easy for them because our perception of reality becomes our experienced reality. And so if you look at religion, it's about subordination. Almost, there will be some, no doubt, but almost every religion is about a figure of power and subordinate followers. Doesn't matter if it's Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, doesn't matter. Same dynamic. And if you look at the non-religious, where they perceive authority to be the power over them, you must obey authority. I mean, what will authority do if you don't obey? All these states of perceptual subordination are creating collectively a world of subordination. And this is why it's so important, it's so vital, it's the bottom line, that the inner core of this cult keeps this information from the target population, where we think that everything is random, that it's just a coincidence, and it's not something that we're creating. It's just something that happens to us. Oh, I'm so unlucky. No such thing as good luck and bad luck. It's just creating your own reality that you like or you don't like. And these are the levels of understanding of how reality works and how we interact with it that will set us free of this perceptual prison, because that's what it is, that humanity has been in for so long.
Hmm. To really sum that whole message up, I want to read a quote of yours that is, "When we free our perceptions, we free our lives. If enough of us do it, then the world becomes free into a world that instead of being a prison, can become the paradise that it once was and can become again." I'm really curious to know where that part of the paradise that it once was came from. Have we been in those states of awareness before where we weren't limited to this perceptual cage that we are in largely in the mass population?
Well, this is something that I've been looking at and researching um, very, very deeply in the last few years. And I produced a series of books, like what I call my reality trilogy: The Trap, The Dream, and The Reveal, uh, looking at all this. It's clear to me now, and you know, it's like not one source, it's multiple sources that lead you in the same direction, that we are living in a fake reality. We're living in the equivalent of a virtual reality computer game. What I call prime reality was the state that I was talking about in that quote of like we once were, because we were at one point aware that we are consciousness. And the trap was to create a reality that initially seemed very, very like the, I'll call it prime reality that we were experiencing before. The prime reality that still exists, by the way, still exists in the same space that I'm sitting in now and you're sitting in. It's just that we're not tuned to it anymore. And it's been described to me by many people who've been kind of out there in the other dimensions and have seen it. They've described it as like, and this came to me as well. It's like an overlay. Imagine like a Wi-Fi field. We have the internet, right? And how do we have the internet? Because we have computers that decode Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is just a radiation field encoded with enormous amounts of information. And the computer connects with that Wi-Fi field and decodes it from the pure information it is in the waveform radiation state into what we see on the screen in a very, very different state to what to how it is in the Wi-Fi field. And the human body is doing exactly that. The human body was manipulated to interact with this fake reality overlay. And it works exactly like, in theme, a computer does. I've been calling the human body a biological computer since the 1990s. So the computer connects into the Wi-Fi field, the wave field, decodes it, puts it on the screen in a completely different state, a completely different form. If you look, even with mainstream science, and I say even because it's the Stone Age, most of it, then that's what the body does. We are picking up the five senses, which is the way that we interact with this overlay fake reality. The five senses pick up that waveform field level of information. The ears are a perfect example, because we understand that the ears are picking up sound waves. I'm speaking now, and the people listening are hearing what I'm saying, but it's not words that are passing between us. It's the frequency carrying information. So my vocal cords are generating a wave field of information, and the ears pick up that information. They turn it into electrical information, same information, different form, and they communicate it to the brain, and the brain decodes that into the reality that we hear. Now, all the five senses work the same. We are looking in terms of sight, first of all, at the most extraordinarily narrow band of frequency. And you know, I've said this so many times. For me, children should be told at the earliest moment they can grasp it, that when they look into a space, they're not seeing everything in that space. They're only seeing a tiny band of frequency. Because once you realize that, everything changes. How things can happen in the hidden that you're not aware of. Mm. And according to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum, which is basically our experience reality, is 0.005% of what exists in the universe in terms of energy in different forms. And visible light, which is the only band of frequency we can see, is a smear, a fraction of the 0.005%. So we are able to see a tiny, tiny amount of what exists in the space that we are sitting in, we are experiencing. And so therefore, from that point of view alone, we are bordering on blindness in terms of what is happening in the space we're experiencing. But what's happening with sight is that we're picking up frequencies. Electrical signals are communicated to the brain, and it's the brain that sees, and it's the brain that feels, it's the brain that hears, it's the brain that smells. It's all going on in here. And so when my son was in hospital a long time ago with a broken leg, I was talking to the doctor, and they were developing, I suppose it's widespread now, a method of pain relief which was based on stopping the point of impact communicating with the brain, breaking that communication. Because if the brain doesn't get that communication, you don't feel pain. Everything is happening here and is being decoded here, just like a computer. And so we are, through the five senses, picking up these information sources from this overlay, this fake reality. And we are creating that reality, not externally. I know it appears that's what we're experiencing. We're creating it in here. The whole thing happens in here. So where is the computer? Where is the computer decoding the Wi-Fi field? It's not happening here or here or here. It's happening inside the computer. And what's fascinating to me is to see the way that this explosion of technology and computerization and all these different aspects of it that are getting more and more extreme all the time are mirroring technologically the way that we're actually experiencing reality and decoding reality. So if you take the human body brain to be like a headset in a virtual reality game, then you pretty much got the dynamic. Because, if you go on the internet, go on YouTube, and you put in a few words relating to funny things that have happened in computer games or whatever, worse to that effect, you'll get compilation videos of people who are in a room they've been used to, they're familiar with, and they put their headset on. Now, information is being fed to the five senses. It's overridden the normal decoding systems of reality. So you put the goggles on, you put the audio on, the most sophisticated ones, you put the gloves on for the touch sense, etc. And you see people in rooms they're familiar with, put their headset on, and completely transform in terms of their sense of reality. They're falling off the chair, they're running away, they're screaming, all these different emotional reactions there to what is simply a technological headset with information being delivered to the senses that they weren't getting before. But it becomes their reality almost instantly. Now imagine that you're born into this biological computer, and from cradle to grave, there's no taking it off, because you see in these virtual reality compilations that people are screaming and shouting and running, and then they'll take the headset off and they'll go, pew, it's just a game. But with the human body that's decoding this reality, you can't take it off short of what we call death, which is just death of the body. The operating system ceases to operate. And so you're going through from cradle to grave, and this is decoding your reality for you. And this is where perception comes in. Because if you are simply following the perceptual norms, then you just accept that what you are experiencing is how reality is. The myopia of perception becomes the myopia of the way you see the world. But what happens more and more as you expand your awareness and you start to tap into levels of knowledge, information that are beyond the overlay, then suddenly you start to see the situation in a very different light. And it's that expansion of awareness that goes, hey, what is this reality? Where am I? Who am I? What's going on, really? They don't want that process to happen. So they focus your attention, and they constantly produce drama to keep you focused on the five sense reality of the five sense world. So you don't stop and ponder and just start asking the big questions. Not shall I vote for Trump or Harris, but who am I? What is this place? How did I get here? Where do I go when it's over? And when you are willing to ask those questions and pursue them and deprogram yourself from the religious programming and the perceptual programming and the cultural programming, then you start to get a view of reality that's very, very fundamentally different to what you had before, when this was delivering reality and you were accepting it for what it was instead of going, well, hold on, what is this reality? And so in the same way that we are interacting with the quantum realm and manifesting our experience, material reality, so once you start asking the big questions, you are interacting with the quantum realm and it will present you with answers to the big questions. But if you don't ask them, it can't, because the feedback loop can't produce answers for questions that have not been asked. And the pressure is, and the way the system works is to keep you so focused on day-to-day reality, on the reality of the so-called material world, it's not really, that these big questions don't get asked. And if you look, for instance, at mainstream science, the funding and the prestige and the professorships and the adulation overwhelmingly comes to those scientists that don't ask those big questions in search of the answers. The funding, the prestige goes to those that toe the line of orthodox science, which staggeringly still, despite quantum physics, oh, yeah, well, I'll acknowledge it, but then I'll crack on as if it doesn't exist. And there's a lot more to know about the quantum realm too than we know yet. They'll just crack on pushing the orthodox version of reality, which is basically we're a cosmic accident. We came from nowhere and we're going into nowhere, and that's it. Big Bang and all that stuff. That's where you get your prestige from. If you're a doctor and you expand your awareness and you start to tap into levels that give you an insight into how illness manifests and therefore how it can be overcome, just balance and imbalance in effect, then don't think you're going to, first of all, express that belief and certainly not practice it within the mainstream of medicine, because you're out the door. So what the system has done has set up a system of reward, prestige, survival in these various professions based on going with the orthodoxy and not questioning it. And this means that, I mean, we saw it. We do have a recent example how doctors just go with the party line and go with what they're told rather than question anything. We're seeing scientists do that. The paranormal. Oh, why do we call it the paranormal? What? There's no para to it. It's normal. It's just that it's outside the orthodox normal, which is why they call it para. And so we are in a system that is set up, excuse me, systematically to keep us in the box, keep us in the perceptual box. And all these people that are put in these positions of apparent expertise, not really a lot of the time, in medicine and science and academia and all these other different professions, those that toe the line don't question, don't ask the big questions, and even if they do, they keep it to themselves. They're the ones the population look to as experts to tell them what to think, to tell them how things are. So you again have got this feedback loop between perception and experts and perception, experts and perception, perception and experts. Everywhere you look, there are these feedback loops between the target population and the perception of reality that the manipulators want the target population to have. And, people will be well aware over the years what happens if you step out of the box. If you start asking the big questions, you start talking about them. So people can even think you're crazy, but they certainly dismiss you as a kook, crazy, pseudoscientist, and all the rest of it. And so there is many years ago, back in the 1990s, I used to make the point that humans have out-sheep the sheep, because at least the sheep need a sheepdog to keep them in line. Humans keep themselves in line. And they keep themselves in line by accepting what they're told about reality, what they're told about their self-identity, what they're told about events. And anyone among them that steps out of that, I know this from long experience, and starts questioning these norms, it's not necessarily the manipulators that target you, though they do that sometimes. It's the population that target you. And you can see this with religion, where different religions with different belief systems. Look at the conflicts and the wars we've had between people of different belief systems, because they actually the same belief system in a different guise, because they believe that what they believe, everyone should believe. And what is that if not exactly what people like me have experienced, where we're abused and ridiculed for having a different view of reality to the mass of the population? Everywhere you look, you see this same recurring theme of perceptual infusion, not least through intimidation and repetition. If you come out of the womb and your parents, who've been through the same system you're about to go through, start impacting upon your perception, and then you go to school, and now a teacher is first of all dictating your life, when you have to be there, when you can leave, when you can go to the toilet, when you can eat, when you can talk, but also impacting upon your perception of reality by what they're telling you reality is in all its different forms. And then you go on to university or college, and the same thing happens, but at a higher level. And you only pass your exams overwhelmingly if you tell the system what it's told you to believe. And then you go out into the world, and you're meeting people who've been through the same system that you've just been through, but earlier. And everyone's supporting the belief of everyone else that this is how reality is. This is what the world is. This is how it works. They may differ in the detail, but the basic themes are the same. And you turn on the media, and the media is telling you the same stuff that the school told you and the university told you. And scientists are coming on the TV and telling you the same, and academics and doctors. Is it any wonder that people go through their entire lives believing something that is complete crap? Provably so. Of course, they'll believe it. What breaks that cycle? And here we come back to causes and removing the cause. What breaks that cycle is if you expand your sense of awareness out of this reality, this fake reality.
This is the level that most cannot grasp. This level, people. And for me, it's basic, but I don't know. So many people cannot grasp this level of thinking, people. And it's the nature of reality. What we think, what we perceive this life to be, that's our reality. As David said, this is a fake reality they have given to us. And it's so true, people. Most of what we believe, most of what we hold to our heart, it's fake. Fake, fake, fake. And this is the level that most people need to get at, people. You must be able to think outside these realms we've been handed to. Because we can all see these leaders, governments, they are liars, they are criminals, PDF, all of the above, all those wicked, evil, psychopathic stuff, people. But they are the one that set the rules. They are the one who make the laws. How is that even possible? How? That's the mightiest of contradiction. The mightiest of ironies. The guys who break the rules make the rules and force us to follow the rules. That's the even crazier part of all of these people. How is this even able to continue, people? Because what? Most of us seem to not be able to grasp this level, this nature of our reality, people. Most of the things are fake. Fairy tales, lies, trickery. And we have to give thanks. We have a brother like David, like people can articulate it at a level that, many can understand easily. And we continue to awaken minds, continue to open eyes. And that's our mission. That's why I'm here, people. That's why I run this channel. To get into that deepness of thinking. That deeper level of understanding this life, this world. We are finding ourselves in, people. So, this is it. This is the level. This is the predicament. And it's crazy. It's crazy, people. It's crazy. But we go on. The struggle continue. A luta will continue or something like that. A luta continue. The struggle goes on, people. But we'll conquer. I'm sure of that. We'll conquer. Because I see this community. People like David Icke. He have a big following worldwide. Because we want this truth. We want this information. We want to change people. Tired of this realm. Tired of this fake reality that separate families. Separate loved ones, people. So, love. See you on the next one.